Imagine yourself lying in bed now, the room dim, the air cool and still. Outside, the world is quiet, wrapped in mist and moonlight. You have nowhere to be, nothing left to do, only this moment and the soft rhythm of your own breath. Tonight, let the sound of my voice guide you across Scotland through ancient castles, forgotten fields, and gentle ghosts who mean no harm. These are stories not of fear, but of memory, tales whispered by stone and sea, meant to help you drift into calm. So close your eyes, let the world slow down, and as the mist gathers beyond the hills, the first story will begin to breathe. Story 1. Edinburgh Castle, Edinburgh. The heart of Scotland beats beneath stone and nowhere more deeply than on Castle Rock. Edinburgh Castle rises like a shadow carved from time itself, its walls veined with centuries of wind, rain, and whispered memory. At night, when the tourists are gone and the city lights below begin to shimmer like dying embers, the old fortress becomes something else entirely, a living echo of all who have ever walked its ramparts. You can almost feel the weight of their footsteps in the silence, the faint rhythm of drums from long ago, the distant, steady breath of soldiers who never came home. The mist curls around the towers like a memory that refuses to fade. And when the moonlight drifts through the narrow windows of the great hall, it paints pale shapes across the stone floor, shapes that seem to move when you are not looking. They say a lone piper once ventured deep beneath the castle, through tunnels that twisted toward the heart of the city. He was sent to play his bagpipes so those above could follow his tune, mapping the path of the tunnels by sound. But halfway through his journey, the music stopped. Searchers found no trace of him. Since then, faint, mournful piping has been heard beneath the cobbled streets of Edinburgh, echoing through the castle walls on quiet nights. Sometimes, when the air grows heavy and the clouds hang low, it feels as though the castle itself sighs. Each tower seems to breathe out history, the cry of battle, the hush of prayer, the soft whisper of those who once watched the sunrise from these ancient heights. And if you linger long enough by the half-moon battery, you might hear something that isn't quite the wind, the clatter of boots, the rustle of armor, or the low, weary hum of a soldier's tune carried on the cold air. The castle never sleeps, and it only rests between breaths, waiting for the next dawn to remind it that even stone remembers. And beyond the next hill, another legend waits, one that dwells in shadowed halls and whispers through velvet corridors. Story 2. Glamis Castle, Angus. There is a softness to Glamis Castle at first glance, its towers touched by ivy, its windows glimmering like quiet eyes beneath the moon. But beneath that beauty lies something older, something that hums like a low note behind every heartbeat. Glamis has lived many lives, royal home, battlefield refuge. Keeper of secrets, and its stones have learned to whisper. The long drive to the castle winds through a mist that seems to thicken as you approach. The trees lean closer, their branches like arms reaching for the past. And when you finally glimpse the castle's turrets through the haze, there is a stillness that settles deep inside you, as though time itself has paused to listen. They say that within these walls, there is a room that does not appear on any map, a hidden chamber known only by a few, sealed away long ago. Some say it holds the bones of a terrible secret, a child born into the family who could not be seen by the world. Others speak of a monstrous figure, or a reminder of a curse that ran too deep to forget. The truth, like the mist, never clears entirely. Guests have spoken of footsteps pacing in empty corridors, Servants once refused to enter certain rooms after nightfall. In the drawing room, a faint scent of roses lingers where no flowers bloom. And sometimes, when the wind moves just right, the faint echo of a harp drifts through the hall, though no musician stands nearby. It is said that one of the earls, heavy with guilt, confessed on his deathbed that he had played cards with the devil himself in a secret room, on a night when the thunder rolled and the candles burned blue. By morning, the earl was found pale and trembling. His hair turned white, and the door to that hidden room was sealed forever. But even sealed doors do not silence memory. Sometimes, in the hour before dawn, you can feel the faint warmth of a candle flicker behind a wall, or hear a soft sigh that seems to come from nowhere. Glamis keeps its stories close like a queen guarding her crown. And as the dawn rises over Angus, the mist drifts on again, carrying us northward toward fields where the air itself still trembles with the sorrow of the fallen. Story 3, Culloden Moor, Inverness. The land here breathes differently, wide and quiet, as though even the wind has learned reverence. Culloden Moor is not a place of castles or halls. It is a field of stillness, where time is folded in upon itself, and the air forever hums with loss. As you walk across the moor, the grass shivers underfoot. The scent of peat and rain lingers, and the horizon seems endless, soft and gray, like the memory of smoke. You can almost hear it before you see it, the distant rhythm of drums, faint shouts carried by the wind, and the clash of steel muffled by the centuries. Here, in 1746, the Jacobite soldiers fought their final battle brief, brutal and forever remembered. Hundreds fell where the heather grows now, their blood vanishing into the earth that still feels warm beneath the mist. They say that on certain mornings, when fog drifts low and the air holds its breath, the field stirs again. Shadows move where no men walk. The soft tramp of boots echoes, growing fainter the closer you listen. A traveler once told of standing at the edge of the moor just before dawn, when the sky was the color of ash. He heard bagpipes, faint, mournful, but steady, rising from somewhere beyond the hill. Yet when he reached the top, there was nothing but the whisper of wind through grass and the slow cry of a curlew. The pipes had stopped. The gravestones here are small, marked only by clan names. Fraser, MacDonald, Cameron carved into weathered stone. Leaning as if listening, visitors sometimes leave flowers or tartan ribbons. And those, too, tremble as though touched by unseen hands. The moor does not frighten, it simply remembers. Its silence is not emptiness but devotion, a vow to never forget the cries that once filled its air. And when night falls, and the moon rises pale over Inverness, the mist thickens once more. From somewhere deep within it, the echo of a voice calls out soft, pleading, and eternal. It fades like the last breath of a dream. If you keep listening, the next story drifts from beneath the cobblestones of an older city, a place where shadowed alleys hide entire worlds beneath their feet. Story 4, Mary King's Close, Edinburgh. Beneath the heart of Edinburgh, hidden under the hum of the Royal Mile, lies a forgotten city sealed away from the sun. Mary King's Close, a narrow maze of stone alleys and shuttered rooms, once echoed with laughter, cries, and the rattle of carts. Now, it breathes only in whispers. When the plague swept through Edinburgh in the 1600s, these underground homes were bricked up and abandoned, leaving behind a silence that feels alive. The air is thick, unmoving, carrying the faint scent of damp stone and time. Your footsteps sound too loud here, and even your breath feels borrowed. They say that if you stop long enough, you can hear the faint sound of a child's giggle, the echo of a girl called Annie. Her story drifts through the centuries, how she was left behind when the sickness came, her small voice fading behind the walls. Centuries later, a psychic visiting the close said she felt the presence of a child crying for her lost doll. She left a toy behind to comfort her, and now hundreds of dolls sit there in the dark, their glass eyes glinting in candlelight. A quiet shrine to an old sorrow. Guides who walk the close at night tell of sudden chills that dance up the spine, or the feeling of a gentle tug on their sleeve when no one stands nearby. Others hear faint footsteps pacing ahead, turning corners that lead to nowhere. The walls themselves seem to sigh, as though remembering what it was to breathe freely once more. If you touch the stone, it's cold, but beneath the chill is something else, a pulse that feels like memory. The kind of memory that lingers not out of anger, but longing. When you emerge again into the open air, the city above feels almost too bright, too alive. You might glance back, half expecting to see a figure watching from the shadows, a silhouette framed by an old doorway, still waiting for her story to be heard. And beyond those cobbled streets, where the land widens and the hills grow taller, another castle rises proud, silent, and filled with echoes of loyalty and loss. Story 5. Stirling Castle. Stirling. Stirling Castle stands like a guardian between highlands and lowlands, a sentinel of history perched upon volcanic rock, watching centuries pass beneath its gaze. From afar, it gleams pale in the moonlight, its battlements rising against the mist. But inside those walls, the air feels thick with remembrance, as though the castle itself inhales the dreams of those who once called it home. The great halls are vast and quiet now. Footsteps echo softly on worn stone floors polished by generations of soldier. Kings and queens. Somewhere, a tapestry shifts as though touched by a breeze that doesn't exist. The castle sleeps, but lightly, never fully, never peacefully. There are tales of a ghostly Highlander wandering the battlements, his kilt rippling though the air is still. Some say he appears before great events, a silent guardian of the crown. Others claim he is a soldier who never left his post, watching the horizon for a battle that ended long ago. His footsteps are slow, measured as if he walks between time and duty. But there is another story whispered by the guides, that of the Green Lady. Her name, long forgotten, was said to belong to a maid of Queen Mary. One night, the maid dreamt of fire consuming the queen's chambers. Terrified, she rushed to her side, only to find the vision had come true. Though she saved her sovereign, the maid perished in the smoke. Now, her spirit lingers still, dressed in green, drifting through corridors with a grace that feels both sad and serene. Witnesses describe the faint scent of burning candles when she passes, or the rustle of silk brushing against the walls. In the Queen's room, the air grows warmer, softer, as though lit from within not by flame but by memory. If you stand upon the ramparts at dusk, looking over the river Forth winding like a silver ribbon through the land, you might feel the weight of centuries pressing close, not in fear, but in quiet awe. The castle seems to sigh then, a deep exhale that rolls across the valley like the sound of time itself letting go. And when the stars finally rise, the walls of Stirling fade into shadow once more. Watching, waiting, remembering. Further north, where the wind turns colder and the hills lean closer to the sea. Another castle waits its legend wrapped not in glory, but in grief. Story 6, Fyvie Castle, Aberdeenshire. In the gentle green of Aberdeenshire, Fyvie Castle rests among the trees like a memory that never quite fades. Its towers glow faintly under the moon, touched by the quiet shimmer of dew. Yet even from a distance, there's something about Fyvie await beneath its beauty, as if the air itself carries the echo of unfinished stories. The castle's history stretches back 8 centuries, and with it comes a tale of curses, unbroken vows, and restless hearts. They say a seer once came to the castle seeking shelter from a storm. When turned away, he cursed its lords no heir born within these walls would ever inherit the estate. Since then, each generation has known sorrow, and each storm that passes over Fyvie seems to hum with that ancient promise. Inside, the halls are hushed, their portraits dimly lit by candlelight. The eyes in those paintings seem almost alive, following you as you move. One room, the tapestry chamber, feels especially still, so quiet that you can hear your own heartbeat. Here the legend of the Grey Lady lingers, the Grey. She is said to be the ghost of Dame Lilias Drummond, betrayed by her husband, who locked her away until her death. On the night of his second marriage, when laughter echoed through the halls, something unseen carved her name into the stone windowsill of the bridal chamber. It remains there still, worn but unbroken, Lilias Drummond. Guests who stay in that room often speak of roses, though no flowers are present. Others hear soft sighs in the darkness, or the faint whisper of a woman's voice singing an old lullaby. Once, a caretaker claimed he saw her reflection in a mirror, her face calm, her eyes filled with sorrow rather than malice. Fyvie's curse and its ghosts have never brought fear so much as melancholy. The castle feels alive with remembrance, as though its walls are heavy not with anger, but love that never found peace. Outside, the trees rustle softly, and the loch nearby ripples in the moonlight. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls, and its voice carries through the still air like a promise, gentle, mournful, endless. And if you follow that sound along the winding highland roads, you'll find yourself before an old inn beside a quiet loch, a place where weary travelers still whisper about the ones who never left. Story 7, The Drover's Inn, Loch Lomond. The road that leads to the Drover's Inn feels timeless, winding along the edge of Loch Lomond, where mist clings low to the water and the pines murmur like sleepers dreaming. When you arrive, the building seems to rise out of the fog itself, thick stone walls, uneven windows, a roof bowed by age. The sign creaks softly in the wind, as though greeting you in its own ancient way. The inn has stood here for more than 3 centuries, welcoming travelers, wanderers, and souls lost between one place and another. Its wooden floors are worn smooth by boots that no longer walk the earth. Inside, the air is warm with the scent of peat smoke and ale. But beneath it lingers something else, the faint sweetness of memory, and the quiet awareness that not everyone who enters truly leaves. The story most often told is of a young Highlander who froze to death on the road one bitter night. His friends carried him here, seeking help too late. They laid him by the fire, hoping warmth might wake him. But when morning came, the fire had burned low, and his place by the hearth was empty. Some say his spirit still returns to that same spot when the nights grow cold. A figure seated quietly in the glow of the flames. Guests have woken to the sound of heavy footsteps pacing upstairs. or felt a sudden chill in the air, a breath of loch wind that doesn't belong indoors. Some hear laughter drifting down the stairwell, rough and hearty, like the echo of a gathering long ended. And sometimes, in the hush before dawn, a door opens and closes by itself, as if welcoming someone home. The inn does not hide its ghosts. Their faces stare from portraits hung crookedly on the walls, their stories told over pints and firelight. There's comfort in it, a sense that this place is a refuge not just for the living, but for those who can't quite move on. Outside, the mist thickens again, curling around the building like a shawl. The loch is still, reflecting only the faint shimmer of starlight. And if you listen, really listen, you might hear faint footsteps crunching the gravel outside, the sound of another traveler finding their way home, just for the night. And when you leave the Drovers Inn behind, following the road east toward the sea, you'll see a ruin rising from the cliffs, proud, broken, and forever watching the restless waves below. Story 8, Dunnottar Castle, Stonehaven. The sea greets Dunnottar Castle not with calm, but with awe, waves breaking endlessly against the cliffs, their spray glinting silver under the moon. The castle stands high above them, perched on a headland that seems carved from storm and memory itself. From a distance, it looks like something the sea tried to reclaim but could not. The wind here carries whispers, a mingling of salt, sorrow, and time. The ruins, though silent, still seem alive, arches half buried in moss, chambers open to the sky, stairways leading nowhere but the past. Even in ruin, Dunnottar feels unyielding, as though it still guards something sacred. Long ago, these walls held the Scottish crown jewels during Cromwell's siege. Soldiers starved and fought to protect them, and some say their loyalty has never faded. Visitors often speak of hearing the sound of marching boots echoing through the empty halls, or seeing the flicker of torchlight deep in the dark cellars long after the sun is gone. But it is not only soldiers who linger here. There is the spirit of a young girl, the Green Lady of Dunnottar. She appears on misty nights, drifting through the ruins, her gown billowing like sea foam. No one knows who she was, perhaps a servant lost in the storm, perhaps a prisoner, perhaps something else entirely. Those who see her say she is searching for something or someone among the stones. When she passes, the air smells faintly of apples, though none grow on these cliffs. At dusk, the gulls circle above, their cries fading into the roar of the sea. The light turns soft and gray, and the castle seems to breathe the wind moving through its windows like the sigh of an old soul remembering what it once was. Stand too long by the edge, and you might feel a strange pull not toward danger, but toward history itself, as if the sea is whispering. Remember, the waves crash endlessly below, the tide moving like a heartbeat. When night comes, Dunnottar disappears into fog, leaving only the faint outline of its towers and the certainty that the stories carved into its stone will never drown. And when the morning mist drifts inland, it settles among old gravestones and curling iron gates where the dead lie close to the living, and names are whispered by the wind itself. Story 9. Greyfriars Kirkyard, Edinburgh. In the heart of Edinburgh, where the cobblestones glisten with rain and the night air carries the scent of old stone and ivy, there lies a small enclosed graveyard that hums softly with history. Greyfriars Kirkyard, peaceful by day, almost luminous by moonlight, has watched over the city for more than 4 centuries. It is a place where the line between the living and the dead feels as thin as breath on glass. The gates creak faintly as you enter. The air is cool, touched with mist, and the sound of the city seems to fade behind you. Row upon row of ancient headstones lean toward each other like old friends whispering secrets. Names carved deep into sandstone blur with moss, their letters softened by time. The wind here moves gently, curling around statues of angels whose faces are streaked with rain. The story most often told is of George Bloody Mackenzie, the infamous Lord Advocate of the 17th century. In life, he was known for his relentless persecution during the Covenanters' trials. In death, his tomb stands at the far end of the graveyard, locked but restless. For centuries, people have claimed to hear knocking from within, or to see the heavy iron gate shudder as though struck from the inside. Some visitors leave feeling faint or chilled, swearing they heard someone whisper their name. But not all spirits here are vengeful. Near the entrance stands the grave of Greyfriars Bobby, the loyal little terrier who watched over his master's resting place for 14 years. Even now, fresh flowers appear at his statue, left by strangers who never met him. On quiet nights, a few say they've heard soft footsteps padding through the grass or the faint jingle of a collar just beyond sight. Greyfriars is not frightening. It is tender in its silence, almost protective. The air feels thick with memory, with love and regret woven together like ivy and stone. Sometimes, the mist moves in such a way that you could almost believe the spirits here are still walking, still keeping watch over their city, unchanged by time. When you leave, the gates close softly behind you, Stum, and the sound echoes like a sigh. Beyond the walls, the streets hum with life again, but you'll carry with you the quiet calm of the graveyard. The feeling that someone or something walked beside you for a while. And farther north, where mountains meet the sea and the wind tastes of salt and rain, there stands one final castle serene, solitary and timeless, waiting for the night to tell its story. Story 10, Island Donan Castle, Dorney, where three lochs meet beneath the rugged hills of the Highlands. Island Donan rises from the water like something half-remembered from a dream. A single stone bridge leads to its gates, curving gracefully across the still surface, where the moonlight drifts in long silver ribbons. When the tide is calm, the castle's reflection trembles softly, as if the past itself is breathing beneath the loch. At night, this place feels neither lonely nor alive, only eternal. The air carries the scent of pine and salt, the quiet hum of wind against stone. Inside, the corridors echo faintly with footsteps that belong to no one living. Candles flicker when the air is still, and sometimes, though faint harp music floats from the great hall, a melody too old to be named. Legend says that during the Jacobite Rising, many loyal clansmen sought refuge here, their hopes hidden beneath the castle's sturdy walls. When the soldiers came, cannon fire broke the silence, and flames consumed much of what stood. Yet even as the ruins smoldered, it said a figure remained by the water, a lone piper playing a lament so haunting that even the wind grew still to listen. His tune faded when the last wall fell. But those who stay here claim that, on certain nights, the melody returns carried softly across the loch, a note that feels both sorrowful and kind. Another story tells of a woman in white, seen walking along the bridge just before dawn. Her presence is calm, not fearful, a guardian of memory, perhaps. Some say she was once a bride who waited for her husband's return from war, watching the horizon until she became part of it. When morning breaks, her figure fades with the mist, leaving behind only the sound of water lapping gently at the stones. Eilean Donan does not haunt, it cradles. Its silence feels like understanding, the kind that comes after centuries of watching the tides rise and fall, knowing that everything returns and in time to stillness. If you stand on the bridge at twilight, you can hear the faint call of gulls and the sigh of the wind through the heather. The castle glows in the dim light, serene and unmoved, its reflection shimmering softly as though the veil between worlds grows thin here, but only enough to remind you how beautiful the boundary can be. Now the night grows quiet again, the stories fade, and the world rests in silence. Let the mists close gently around these memories and let your thoughts drift away with them. The stones have told their tales. The wind will keep the rest. Good night.